Hello boys and girls, and very welcome to the test of the new Yamaha R7 from 2022. And I thought, like, there have been a lot of people already testing the unrestricted version on YouTube, so I'm testing the restricted version right now, which makes, of course, 35 kilowatt, 48 horsepower at 7,750 RPM, which compares to the open or unrestricted version, which has about 73 horsepower at 8,750 RPM, which is 1,000 RPM more. Of course, this one is derived, you know, the engine, the chassis is derived from the MT-07, but it also has some unique components and some components from the MT-09. Yeah, and this makes for this new kind of super sport bike, which is more accessible both in terms of pricing and also rideability. And I actually already tried to do the vlog once coming from the other side, because that always gives the better video. But as often if I'm doing vlogs, I have technical difficulties and it did not record the sound, so I hope this time around it will work actually. So anyway, as I mentioned, this is the restricted version, but it's not that big of a deal because actually the torque is the same. So it makes 67 Newton meter torque at 6,500 RPM, which is more than your average 600 4-cylinder engine sports bike produces, which makes this one actually a lot more convenient and nice to ride on the road. As you can see, we're here on back roads. That's not the actual way I wanted to go, but since we were in this region, I thought, like, yeah, that would be a good opportunity to really showcase how easy this bike is to ride. With inline 4 in this corner, you would have had to shift down to second. Here it will actually also be okay to stay in fourth, but I was in third, and still this works butter smooth. That's it. Okay, let's go right here. Yeah, it's really easy to ride, and you know, one of the main things about this great CP2 engine that basically everyone who already owned it really loves, I would say, not sure about that, but I think this would not be a bad assumption. One of the core things here is the torque, which is very linear and actually available from very low in the RPM range. So you would have like 62 Newton meters straight from 4,000 RPM, and then it only climbs very, you know, linear, not progressively. So this would make this bike easy to ride as no other bike, let's say. And yeah, let's also talk about the reason why I chose this pass. Well, actually already explained it before in the other attempt I made, which didn't work, so it's always difficult to make to repeat those things. But the actual reason is this pass was just opened yesterday, and it's one of my favorites. It's not a super duper spectacular hype mountain pass, but it's very nice to ride. It's also great to test bikes because it has a bit of everything. It has narrow corners, it has narrow roads, it has fast flowing sections, Yeah, it has a lot of different things that you can actually really use to evaluate if a bike is good or not. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the nicest weather today, and as I said before, I actually prefer going down and not up this way, because like that you have a much more spectacular view on both the lake and also, you know, coming over the top of the pass at 1,700 meters. You see a lot of trees, and you know, it's a very far view you have, and it's just really nice and beautiful. But now let's just enjoy riding the bike, and I hope you also enjoy this beautiful scenery here in Switzerland, because that is actually one of the reasons you should watch my vlogs if you're English speaking, because there's not a lot of vloggers from Switzerland doing this kind of content. And you know, of course the core thing is bike presentations here, not really reviews but presentations, but I also want to give you some nice tastes of our beautiful nature here, of our beautiful roads, and that's also one of the core reasons to watch my vlogs, I would say. So now the nice part of that Glaubenberg Pass starts, which is actually the best part to showcase the ability of the bike to go through faster corners, just as fast as we can go, let's say. But this one is really a nice section here, even though it has some houses, so you always need to be able to stop. But you see it has a lot of nice flowing corners where you can really enjoy that stability you have of a supersport bike. And yeah, I'm really calling this supersport bike because really the ergonomics, the feeling you have for the front end and everything, it's very much a super sport bike. And even though the engine doesn't really feel like a sport bike engine, it really, the bike as a whole feels like a sport bike. It comes with its benefits and also with its disadvantages. For example, you know, the seating position is not the most comfortable you would get, but as long as it's on twisty roads, it's really easy and really nice to ride. If you're going for longer straight sections, it's not that comfortable, but that's not the reason they built this bike, and that's always a limitation if you really have a sporty bike. And also I think, like, if you're looking at the sport bike, to buy a sport bike, you want that feeling, and you don't really want a tourer with fairing. You really want that feeling of a grown sport bike, which this one really nicely represents. And you know, it feels great around the twisties here. Absolutely amazing. It's so natural. It doesn't even need those electronic aids to feel confidence inspiring. You know, maybe I can tell you a bit about that. From my ownership I have with the Tenere 700, which is more than 35,000 kilometers now. I actually rode it a lot, also in bad conditions. And you know, the Tenere 700 also doesn't have electronic riding aids, but I never got into troubles because of that. So it's up to you to really keep your hand steady, not doing anything stupid or too extreme. So this would very well work in that case. But it really feels very nice. This bike is it's a pleasure to ride. I can tell you. I mean, today, so this morning I rode to work with my R1 to charge the battery, because essentially this is a track bike for me. Yeah, but you know, this one actually feels much much better on the road, because it's so the turning in is really amazing. I mean, it's probably the nicest turning in I ever experienced on a bike. It's so confidence inspiring, you know, and you really feel the bike is not too heavy. It's 188 kilograms, which is comparable to you know, the old R6. So that was an asshole move, but I saw. So the weight of the bike is very reasonable, I would say. It's 188 kilograms, fully fueled, which is really a good weight. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. It's really like comparable to a R6 previously. I think it's fairly easy to maneuver as well. I mean, the seat height is not too low, but I still feel like it has a nice ground access. And you see now I'm in 5th gear, which is way too high, but still it works. Goes out of the corners with a bit of vibrations, but it's very sovereign, let's say. It's really nice. I mean, I enjoyed a lot to ride this bike here. I think the handling is really the great strong point here. What certainly helps is the forks, I would say, which is coming from the MT-09. It's a 41mm fully adjustable Kayaba fork, which does a nice job on this bike. It's rather on the soft side in the standard settings, but I heard you can really change it a lot, the character, if you're going for you know, 2 clicks, more damping. But I think for me it's actually very, very nice the way it is. But you could really fully adjust the suspension in the front. In the back you can only change the rebound and the preload, but that's no big deal, because I think like for road use it's perfect. It really feels nice, confidence inspiring. I mean, it's a great package overall. And I also wanted to talk about the brakes a bit, because you can see here that's also that radial master cylinder and radial, you know, brakes in the front, also derived from the MT-09, working very well. It's really confidence inspiring. It's I mean, it's it has a nice feel because of that radial master cylinder. You actually feel like you're touching the brake disc yourself, which is with this kind of braking it's usually the case. So that's a nice thing as well. And you know, you just saw you get away with a lot of things with this very flexible engine. What's also different from the MT-07, of course, is the frame. So I actually told that it's derived from the MT-07, so a lot of the frame is the same, but they increased rigidity by adding you know, one part on the frame, which makes it as I mentioned, more rigid and really gives you better sporty feeling, more stability, also in faster corners. And another thing that is different from the MT-07 is actually the slipper clutch, the assist slipper clutch, which you don't get in any other CP2 engine configuration. So this is the first bike featuring this. Yep, you actually really feel it. Now that I'm downshifting and not really rev matching, still working fairly well, which is nice. Now the comfort of the bike in terms of suspension is great. I think it's very well rounded for the road, and I think that's also what they were going for. Maybe it's a bit too soft for the track, or if you were really going super fast. Yeah, but for me, I think personally, now that I'm riding a road like this, it's perfect. Feels very well balanced, and you actually don't need to go faster than I'm going now to have fun, because like that you are also in a, you know, in a region where you can react to unforeseen changes in conditions and stuff. So I would very much advise not changing too much about the suspension, and, you know, riding in a way that you still have reserves. But that's up to you what you're doing. I just can say that this bike is a lot of fun, and for what it has to do, it really works well. I mean, it's great fun. It's easy to ride. It's very affordable. Even the 35 kilowatt version, so the A2 version, makes enough power to, yeah, you know, to enjoy those mountain passes and to really go at a decent pace. And as I mentioned, the turning in is really great. I really love that about this bike, and it really makes it a great joy to ride this R7. So if you're interested, if I forgot to mention other things, you can just leave me a comment. You know, I will try to answer every comment that I get. And yeah, for now, I think that I told you what I can from my impressions. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a couple of impressions how this bike rides actually on a public road, not on a racetrack, and not in you know, the very well heated roads of Spain. This was a Dragon Rider vlog with a little bike presentation of this new R7 on the Swiss mountain road at the end of April. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I would say see you around, guys. Bye bye.